Hello Geometry. This section is titled Points, Lines, and Planes. Now this is some foundational vocabulary that you're going to be learning here for all geometry. So here we go. The first one is point. What technically is a point? Well, a point is a location, but it has no size or shape. So point, we diagram a point by using a dot, but it really is just talking about that location, has no size or shape. Now the next word is space. What is space? Space is the set of all points that we are discussing. So all the points are going to lie in what we call space. So we're going to find out what occupies space and whatnot. Okay, so the next one is line. What is a line? A line is a set of points extending infinitely in opposite directions. So again, this is a never-ending thing. Keyword is infinitely, extends infinitely in opposite directions. Now, knowing what points are, knowing what a line is now, the next vocab word is collinear points. What are collinear points? Well, collinear points are points that are on the same line. So if they lie on the same line, they're considered to be collinear. Think about that prefix there meaning together. So together on the same line. That's what collinear points are. Now the next word is a plane. I know we're not talking about the thing that flies in the sky. We're talking about a flat surface. Oh, that was a little typo there. A flat surface with no thickness. Sorry about that little typo there. A flat surface with no thickness. Now, when we draw a plane, it looks like a side of an object or whatnot, but when we refer to it as a plane, we're talking about a flat surface with no thickness, and technically it extends infinitely in all directions as well that it's lying on. So, point, line, points that lie on the same line are collinear. So coplanar, if we think about what we just learned with collinear, coplanar means points or lines that are on the same plane. So again, collinear, points on the same line. Coplanar now, coplanar means points or lines that are on the same plane. So you can have 2 or 3 lines or infinite amount of lines on a plane. So it's not just points that are coplanar, but you can also say lines can be coplanar as well. Okay? And our last vocab word is postulates. What is a postulate? A postulate is an accepted statement of fact. So a postulate, again, things have been tried out and we've discovered that it's fact. Therefore, we can come up with a postulate. That's very different from an opinion. Like if I were to say the San Francisco Giants are the best baseball team, although I find that to be true, it's still an opinion. A postulate is something stated of fact. We're going to learn many postulates throughout this year. The first one that we're going to be learning is that 2 points between 2 points is always, or through 2 points is exactly one line. That is an example of a postulate because that is fact, that through 2 points there will always be one line. Okay, so that's our vocab so far. Now let's get into some sample problems here. The big thing about today is we're going to learn how to label correctly. It's all about labeling correctly. We have English has its own notation. We use commas and we use semicolons, exclamation points, and all this stuff for punctuation. Math has its own notation as well, and it's very, very important to know how to label things correctly. Although we may be getting our point across by what we put, we still want to use correct notation. So the question is, how do you label points and a line? Well, for points, what you'll notice here is that we have capital letters here. I'm trying to circle that. I do apologize if this is going to be kind of sloppy. But we do have capital letters. Capital letters always, always, always signify points. Okay? They always signify points. And lowercase will always signify the name of the line, or sometimes it'll be the name of a plane. But that's always with lowercase. Okay, so if you're ever talking about a point, you would use capital letter. So I would say, for instance, point E. Now we can write it like that, or we can write it out lowercase. We could say point E. And again, I do apologize for the wonderful handwriting. So that's how we label a point. So you can use just one capital letter. Also, when we talk about lines, now this is where we actually can have we have many different options on how to label. So if I'm going to talk about this line right here, now notice there are actually 3 points that lie on that line. The way you label a line, if you want to use points, is you only need 2. And what I would do is I would say line EF with an arrow over it. And notice the arrows go both ways. That signifies that it is a line extending infinitely in both directions. Now, for me to switch it around, this doesn't count as 2 different ways of naming it, because since we're talking about extending infinitely, it doesn't matter what 2 points to choose. Another way I could name it is I can do EC, any 2 points that are on that line. I could say CF, that's another way of labeling this. Or I can actually use the lowercase one here. So if I want to use that lowercase right there, what I can do is write out the word line. So if I'm going to use the lowercase, I would say line M. Okay? Line M. You can never just leave the lowercase by itself. Okay? So it would be line M. Uppercase, 2 points to label a line with arrows above it. Lowercase, you actually have to write the word line with the lowercase m. Now the next one says name 3 collinear points. Again, collinear means points that lie on the same line. So what I see, which we've already talked about, an example of that would be point E, point F, and point C. Now notice I use commas in between. So if I'm naming 3 separate points, and I'm just talking about the points themselves, I'm going to use commas to separate them. So point E, point F, point C. That's an example of collinear points. Now the next one says name 3 non-collinear points. So by inductive reasoning, for me knowing what the word non means, we could say that's not collinear, not on the same line. Now technically, 2 of them can be on the same line as long as all 3 don't lie on the same line. So I could say E, F, and D. Since E and F are on the same line, that's okay as long as D isn't, to make them all 3 as a group non-collinear. Of course, there's many different options. I could say point F, point P, point D. Just choose 3 that aren't all 3 on the same line. Now here it says name 1 line in 3 different ways. So we can choose a line. Now we've already done line M. So now let's move on to line N. Well, just like I said, we can call it line N. Okay. And we have 2 points. Actually, we can only really name this one in 2 different ways. I apologize. Let's just go with 2 ways. There's only 2 points that we see. We have points C and D. So we could say line CD. Now technically you could have said DC also, but that wouldn't count as 2 separate ways of naming it. So line N, lowercase, I wrote out the word line. And if I want to use capital letters, I have to put the arrows above it. Okay, capital and lowercase are very significantly different. So please be careful with that. Okay, now, how do you name a plane? Again, this, I'm not a fan that they use the letter P because it looks the same uppercase and lowercase. Whenever you don't see that point there, we're gonna consider that a lowercase p, not a capital P. Okay, so that's going to be lowercase. Now, to name a plane using the lowercase is just like a line. We're going to write the word out. So we would say plane P. Okay, so you wouldn't just write the letter. You would actually write out the word plane P. Now, if you have 3 letters here, we can actually consider it all grouped together on one plane. Now, if we only have 3 points, because you need 3 points really for the plane, we would use their capital letters. We'd say plane A, B, C. Now we don't use commas there because we're saying ABC, all of them on one. They make up that one plane as a whole. Now we don't have to draw anything above it, draw anything in front of it, because we've already written the word plane. So plane ABC. Now I do want to say, if there was a fourth letter, you technically don't have to write the word plane. You could just write the 4 letters. But in this case, we only have 3, so we write plane ABC. Again, I don't know why I underlined it, but you don't need another picture like we did with the line here above it. Okay. Now let's move on here. Name a plane represented by this figure. Okay, we're going to give, again, now we technically can use 4 letters here because they have 4 on each side. So we don't have to write the word plane. So we're going to go ahead and combine what this first thing says. Name a plane represented by this figure and give 3 different names for the top. So when we look at the top here, I'm going to try to outline this well. I'll try. We're going to talk about the top surface. Now notice there's 4 letters. The key thing with that is you have to go in order of what you see. You can't cut across. You can't go across the plane. So you have to start at one point and work your way around. So I can call this E, H, G, F. I could start with H, G, F, E. But again, it doesn't matter which way I go. So I could, if I wanted to start with F, I can work my way backwards. F, G, H, E. The key is do not cut across. Start at one point. If I start at E, I work my way around. Okay? Do not cut across when you're naming a plane with 4 points. Alright. Now, list 3 non-collinear points. Well, this will be easy. There's so many points to choose from. Again, keyword non-collinear. So, 3 points not on the same line. So, for example, I could say point E, point C. Those aren't on the same plane or the same line. And point B. Those 3 are most definitely not on the same line. But how about coplanar? Okay, again, they can't be on the same plane. So if I wanted to use E and H, those 2 technically are on the same line and they share the same plane. So I'm going to have to find something. Here, by the way, is the plane that they share, but they also share this plane up top. So for my third point, it cannot be on the top or on the left. So I would say choose B, for example. B down here is not going to be coplanar with E and H. Okay? So again, not on the same plane. Okay. Now one of the postulates that we're going to learn is that the intersection of 2 planes is a line. Okay, that's key. The intersection of 2 planes is a line. Now here the question is, what is the intersection of plane HGFE, so that is the top, and the plane BCGF, which is the right. It's a weird looking G. Alright, so where does the top surface and the right surface intersect? So again, this one and this one. Now you'll notice, again, like I said, 2 planes intersect at one line. So this is where they're intersecting. So they're intersecting from F to G, but technically, since we called it a plane, that means extending infinitely. It's intersecting at the line FG. We just draw a box. It doesn't look infinite because we can't draw something technically that's infinite, so we have to do that part in our mind. So again, this line goes infinitely through F and G. Now, next one says, name 2 planes that intersect at BF. So this one works a little bit backwards. So this one says, okay, here's BF, and a line is at the intersection of 2 planes. Well, BF is a part of this plane on the right, and BF is a part of this plane in the front. So we just have to name those two planes. So the blue one, let's say, is EFBA. That's one plane. And the other one is the right one, which is FGCB. Okay, so again, notation, notation, notation. 4 letters for a plane, just do not cross through the center of that plane to name it. You want to start at one point, work your way around. And I believe that's it. So again, this lesson is mainly about learning some foundations, points, planes, what are those things, but also how do we label correctly? How do you label correctly? Just to do a quick recap again, planes, 4 letters if you have them, don't cut across through the center. Okay, if you have 3 letters, you have to write out the word plane. If you have the lowercase one on the plane, the lowercase letter, you can just call it plane M. Now with lines, again, if you're going to use 2 points, make sure you have that arrow above it with arrows going in both directions. And if you're going to use the lowercase, you have to write out the word line M. Okay, so that's the lesson for today. I hope that will help you guys. Good luck.